Hello and welcome to Friday night's calendar.
Yes, hello, good evening. Here are tonight's main stories.
Trampoline's gone! 60 mile per hour gusts rip through parts of West Yorkshire, with residents in one street likening the scenes to a mini tornado.
It lasted for about 30 seconds, if that, not long at all. And then everything, I heard banging, there's next door neighbour's roof that's come off.
Further wet and windy weather on the way as we head into the next couple of days. It was the calm before the storm today, but weather warnings in place for the weekend. All the detail a little later on.
Also tonight, record flu levels leave frontline NHS staff preparing for unprecedented winter pressures.
Across the country, there's 4 times as many people in hospital beds at this point of the year compared to last year at this time, and that puts a real pressure on our emergency department in the first place, but then subsequently in the hospital inpatient areas looking after all those extra patients.
A flight lands at Doncaster Sheffield for the first time in 2 years. So is the airport back open for business? And
Is this Chesterfield's most committed fan?
Hi guys.
Oh,
how are you?
Right, lads.
Nice to meet you.
Why Yang Shizun has flown 5,000 miles from South Korea to see the spy rights. Weather warnings are in place across the region this evening, and as Storm Dara approaches, bringing with it heavy rain and wind, we're being told to expect damage to buildings, the potential for power cuts and disruption to transport networks.
it comes on top of some ferocious weather last night, which saw some streets flooded by surface water and one road in West Yorkshire hit by gusts so strong that it was likened by residents to a mini tornado.
Well, in a moment, Kerry will have the details of why some places saw such severe weather, and she'll have more on the weather warnings that are in store over the next 24 hours.
First, though, Michael Billington has spent the day in Outwood in West Yorkshire, where a clean-up has already started.
At rooftop level, homes today bearing the physical scars of last night's wild weather. Extraordinary swirling winds hurled around anything not tied down, leaving people here in Newton Hill near Wakefield in little doubt about what they'd witnessed.
Oh no, it was a tornado, it was black, you could see it spinning round when I looked out at window. All I could see was a debris just flying about in air, and you could see it going down road, tornado, as we come out at door.
There was a spiral of wind, this plant flew over, I couldn't see literally anything at all, and it happened, it lasted for about 30 seconds, if that, not long at all. And then everything, I heard banging, there's next door neighbour's roof that's come off. Don't know what's happened to his car, and then just saw everybody coming out and having a look. So yeah, it was quite scary, to be honest.
The wind here was so strong it picked up an entire shed and dumped the whole lot 10 metres away at the end of the drive.
The shed's new and they're actually nailed down, those, screwed down to the decking. So it's beyond belief how it's happened. So yeah, very frightening.
I think he's going. The net. Trampoline's gone.
In Pontefract, disbelief as the winds carried off play equipment. While the rains brought surface flooding to Kirkstall Road in Leeds and a second flooded cellar in a fortnight at the Stubbing Wharf pub in Hebden Bridge.
We've still got equipment down there that have not even been replaced from last time, so now we're just trying to... We've got new ones delivered, but now it could get destroyed again.
On the rails, major disruption along the East Coast main line after a tree damaged overhead power lines. Passengers bound for London this morning stopped at Doncaster to continue their journeys by coach.
I know it's a train line disaster in terms of the train lines, but in terms of trying to get us across, they could have done a bit more organisation on it. But I'm here, and that's the main thing.
They wouldn't leave King's Cross because it was unsafe to leave because there were too many people on the train. Hardly anybody left, and when we pulled up here, it was absolutely rammed. It was worse than what it was before.
Back near Wakefield, residents have started to count the cost of last night's winds. Roof slates were flung from Andy's house down onto his car below.
I think it will be a write-off. The damage on the roof, the back window here, the small windows, been broken, and then The front wing, the front door on the passenger side's all battered. Just mayhem, really.
Mayhem perhaps, but relief at least that it appears to only be material damage that last night's intense weather has caused.
So yes, lots of people worried about transport links tonight. Well, let's get the latest on the region's railways with Michael now. And we saw the problems caused by that fallen tree in your report, Michael. How are services faring this evening?
Well, dare I say it, Ian, we really saw the perfect storm this morning, didn't we? Passengers impacted by not only that fallen tree, but also nationwide communication issues on the rail network, which caused delays and cancellations. Tonight, Network Rail have told us that for the last 24 hours, they've had engineers working on that stretch of railway near to Wakefield to get that back open again. And it does seem this evening that services are gradually starting to return to some form of normality. But as we look ahead to the next 24 hours and as Storm Dara rolls in, passengers are being asked to leave more time for their journeys and check before they travel, because with more extreme conditions on the way, they are preparing at least for the potential for more disruption as well.
Yes, take care out there, Michael Billington. Thank you very much for joining us from Leeds Railway Station.
Yes, well, we are joined by Kerry now, who, of course, did warn us about this, and you're also warning us about what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, last night was a slightly different setup. We had warmer air and it was pretty unstable. I mean, we had some Amatus clouds west of the Pennines, which is a great indicator of instability. And yes, we were warning for wet and windy conditions. And we had what we call convective showers, where you just get the rising warm air very quickly. You get massive downpours, I mean, deluges, as we've just seen there. And on top of that, what we call squally winds, which are them just increasing very quickly, whipping through and going. But there was a possibility of a tornado. We get about 30 a year, and so yes, we can't, it's really hard to forecast them, but yes, most probably there was a tornado yesterday evening. But it's a slightly different setup now as we head through into the next 36 hours. So I've been talking about it all week. It's Storm Dara. It's been energised, if you like, by our jet stream, which is powering at about 170 miles an hour at the moment. It's already to western fringes of our region in terms of rain, and it pushes through, and it's not going to really strengthen as it pushes eastwards, but it's the winds as it pushes eastwards through the next 36 hours or so. For us, they turn northeasterly, and we are expecting them to strengthen, especially during the second half of tomorrow. So I'm going to try and explain now the weather warnings, because we have a red weather warning for western parts of Wales. That is danger to life. So if you're travelling further afield across the UK during tomorrow, please do take care. There's an amber all the way down the western side as well as Ireland. For us, we're in this yellow patch here, which is 40 to 50 widely, but it could be in excess of 60, 70, particularly for the coastline as we head through tomorrow evening. And on top of that, we've got further warnings. So I've just given a zoom in here, because it's this little patch here that could go amber during the course of tomorrow, and we'll be able to firm up on that tomorrow morning. So please stay tuned to the forecast. And yes, some heavy outbreaks of rain, could be in excess of 50 millimetres for the North York Moors, for example. So although we're not in the danger zone in terms of the amber and the reds, we are expecting some pretty nasty conditions. I mean, the forecast's coming up, but I just thought I'd share with you our Beaufort scale, which is normally used for certainly shipping forecasts and things. But if it was a mean speed, so a constant speed, a gale would be 39 to 46 miles an hour, severe gale 47 to 54, and storm force 55 to 63. So we're getting storm force gusts, not mean speeds, but some really dangerous winds in places, particularly for the hills and the coast tomorrow. I hope that explains things a little bit.
And of course, you've got the weather forecast later on.
Of course,
as well.
all the detail, yeah, in minute detail when
all right,
at the end of the programme.
Thank you very much.
Very well explained. Thanks very much, Kerry.
Now, a man accused of murdering a mother who was allegedly rammed off an e-bike in a hit-and-run crash in North Derbyshire has appeared in court. Alana Armstrong was a passenger on the e-bike when she was killed in a collision involving a dark-coloured 4x4 in Plesley. The e-bike rider, a man in his 20s, has had part of his leg amputated and is still in hospital. 23-year-old Keaton Muldoon of Tuckers Lane in Mansfield appeared at Southern Derbyshire Magistrates Court, charged with murder, attempted murder and driving while disqualified.
2 people who were killed as the car they were in crashed into a tree in a Bradford cemetery have been named. Marcus Ball and Zoe Simpson, who were both 33, died after the silver Volkswagen Polo that they were travelling in collided with a tree in the grounds of Scolmore Cemetery at around 5 a.m. on Thursday. Police are asking for any witnesses to come forward.
Now to warnings from hospitals right across our region that they are under more pressure than ever before, with what the NHS is calling a potential quademic on the horizon.
Record cases of flu and increases in norovirus, COVID and RSV, which causes coughs and colds, mean nationally hospital beds and ambulances are in huge demand.
Now, at Chesterfield Royal Hospital, patients were warned earlier this week that it was facing the highest level of operational pressure and warning of high waiting times as they prioritise the critically ill. Well, our reporter Jonathan Brown's been finding out how staff and patients have been coping.
It's the time of year we're told the NHS is in need of urgent support. Winter viruses ramping up pressures on A&E departments and, in the process, the time patients wait to be seen.
I was on a hard chair with blood clots for 8 hours.
2 weeks ago, Mike was rushed to Chesterfield Royal with severe chest pain in the early hours of the morning, but extreme demand meant delays in getting seen. Tests later revealed he'd had potentially life-threatening clots in both lungs.
It is frustrating when you see people there with fairly minor complaints. There were some major ones and whatever, but it's all sorts.
It'd be awful if something important got missed. We were possibly in that situation through nobody's fault, but it could have developed, the other way. It could have gone to his heart.
Earlier this week, the Trust warned it was facing the highest level of operational pressure. That came as NHS data revealed a 350% increase in flu cases in hospitals compared to the same week last year, as well as an 86% rise in norovirus and growing incidences of COVID and RSV-related coughs and colds.
We're seeing all of these all at once, and patients are coming in TD quite rightly, but when ED's overcrowded, it just increases the risks.
The use of hospital beds for treating those ailments has a knock-on impact on emergency care, which means ambulances have faced long waits outside until spaces have become free.
Just in the last week, we've had this whole corridor full of patients.
Even corridors are now home for queues of beds when peaks arise, something bosses say is avoidable if more people use pharmacies and the 111 phone line for non-life-threatening situations.
The inpatient beds are all virtually full to bursting. At times we've had 20 or 30 or even 40 people waiting in the emergency department, but sometimes it's the only way that we can keep people safe.
The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says the government's spending an extra £26 billion on the NHS, adding in a statement, for too long an annual winter crisis has become the norm. We will deliver long-term reforms through our 10-year health plan. Meanwhile, for people like Mike, who was back in hospital today after having a reaction to his medication, rising demand and the impact that has on emergency care is a huge concern. The Christmas period, bosses here say, is a time to think of others.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan's outside the hospital now. But it's not the only one, is it, Jonathan, that's feeling the strain?
Absolutely not, Laura. Over the past 2 weeks, we've heard from 3 different hospital trusts in our region who've all voiced similar concerns. Last week, Sheffield Teaching Hospitals described its A&E department as exceptionally busy. We also heard from North Lincolnshire and Goulds Trust. It told people to only attend the Diana, Princess of Wales Hospital's emergency department in Grimsby if absolutely necessary. And as you've heard, on Tuesday this week, this place was struggling with demand too. The message from the wider healthcare profession, though, is that regardless of your condition, there is help out there, but in many cases, GPs, the 111 service and pharmacists are best placed to offer it.
You don't need appointments to go into a pharmacy. And the pharmacist will always be there to give advice and treatment if that's required. There is an NHS service to offer effective treatments for 7 minor illness conditions called Pharmacy First, and that doesn't mean you don't need to go and see your GP or go to the hospital. And there's a range of conditions in there that we can treat effectively.
Well, as you heard there, in many cases, you actually be seen more quickly if you attend settings outside of places like this. But bosses today were very keen to stress to me that the clue is in the name. This is an emergency department, so it should only be used in emergencies, so that only the people with the most urgent need for care can get it when they need it.
Jonathan Brown, thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us for Friday's calendar, and still to come before 6:30.
With Chesterfield, I won the Premier League and the Champions League.
Why a computer game sparked a love of the spy rights, and Yang Shijun's 11,000-mile round trip to Chesterfield. Plus,
memories of yesteryear, the fascinating footage that's been pulled from the archive to help an historic Yorkshire cinema celebrate a remarkable milestone. The first flight in 2 years landed at Doncaster Sheffield Airport today. It was a vintage plane returning to its base for maintenance, but it's been hailed as a major milestone in reopening the airport. Closed in November 2022 after its operators said that it failed to make a profit. Now, since then, there's been a huge campaign to save it, with the council in the final stages of signing up a new operator. If you're the parents of a child or adult with a learning disability, the question about how they'll be cared for after you die is hard to think about.
a survey by the charity Sense claims 3/4 of families of those with a learning disability have no long-term plans.
And some care providers say that this can lead to parents looking after their adult children well into old age when they themselves need help and support. Nick Smith reports.
Annie Bell is mother to 36-year-old Rothko, who has a number of complex needs and requires round-the-clock care. She spent the majority of his life looking after him in the family home, but recently found a place at this facility run by the charity Fitzroy after deciding it was better to plan ahead.
And that was an incredibly hard decision because I wasn't ready to put him into a care home. What we didn't want was to keep him at home and reach a point where we were suddenly incapacitated or too old to care for him and have to put him into the first available placement that might be hours away and not entirely suitable. We didn't want to leave it too late. If I still had him at home, I think I'd be really quite worried.
We support over 900 families. Their biggest fear is what's going to happen to their child when they die. We have lots of examples where people have lived at home for a long time and then suddenly find themselves in a position where they need to move into a care home. They find that so difficult to have to face the future of who's going to look after them in the same way that they had at home.
People in Action in Leeds supports those with a learning disability, saying where possible, parents should consult their children on the next steps in life.
It can be traumatic, but there are services such as ours to help reduce any potential trauma, to help that transition go as smoothly and as comfortably for everyone involved, because we want to make sure that people are living happy, healthy lives, and part of that involves having choices, knowing what's coming next in your life.
2/3 of adults with a learning disability still live in their family home, according to the charity MENCAP, which runs socialisation classes like this computer skills one to build support networks.
Plan as early as possible, plan in detail, keep a diary of details like medication, food preferences, keep that detail. Make sure you register the learning disability with your GP so the NHS knows about it, local authority knows about it. And I think above all, support your child to be as independent as possible while you're alive and while you're with them, because that will stand them in good stead for the future.
For those caring for their children for years, even decades, it can be hard to let go of that responsibility. But experts say by embracing a reality where their child carries on long after they're gone, it gives them the best hope of a bright future. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Now, a mixture of fascinating archive footage made in and around Leeds has been compiled to mark the 110th anniversary of the famous Hyde Park Picture House.
Leeds on Film has been put together by the Yorkshire Film Archive and gives an amazing glimpse of life in the city in years gone by.
Well, in a moment we'll speak to Graham Relton from the Yorkshire Film Archive, but first, just take a look at this. Graham, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for coming in. And what a fantastic array of films you're actually producing to mark this anniversary for the Picture House at Hyde Park. I mean, there will be people watching Calendar tonight who remember that.
Yeah, I mean, and beautiful colour. You know, it's a glimpse of life. And yeah, I think people will remember it. And if they don't remember being there or in the film, you'll remember the smoky sort of town hall in the background, I think.
Yeah, what I love about this is that it brings history to life, doesn't it? And I really like that there's the different fashions and the different hairstyles and the different cars and all that kind of thing. How do you choose what you keep in and what you leave out?
It's really difficult to choose. We've got so many films in the collections, and I often say it's not a vault full of films, it's a vault full of stories, and that's what we're trying to reveal, and that's what we'll be doing at the Hyde Park Picture House on Sunday. Let's
have a look at Hunslet, shall we? If you're in Hunslet tonight and you're watching the calendar, you'll remember this, perhaps. Look at this. What's going on here, Graham?
Well, they're actually taking a family from the old slum areas into the newly built Leek Street flats in 1968. And if you look at the attention to detail, the little boy there with his little Leeds United socks on.
There you go. That's what I love, that kind of thing.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? And these were, the state of the art for these families.
Yeah.
But I think the flats only lasted for another 20 or so years. I think they closed in the 1980s, so they maybe weren't quite as what the promotional film made them out to be.
No, but interesting to see families moving in there at that time. Another thing that's really interesting is the John Lewis building that was being built.
That's it, 1930s footage of the building being built, and also the people going into it as well. And you can see more about that at the film show.
Fact about that building, on the opening day there were thousands and thousands of people.
120,000 people attended the opening, and I think by 4 o'clock the only thing you could buy was lobster.
You're joking. That's amazing. Now, if we want colour, nothing gives us more colour than the Chapeltown Carnival.
Absolutely. The Caribbean Carnival in Leeds in the 1970s, what a colourful and celebration of life and people in the city.
And people can see this, of course, can't they, if they come along to the Picture House at Hyde Park?
That's it. There's a whole array of stuff from the early days of filmmaking, the 1880s, right up to the 1980s. 100 years, life, landscape, culture, and just a glimpse of Leeds in the past. And, we hope people can come along.
When is it?
It's at 5 o'clock at Hyde Park Picture House. Get the tickets from the website. And I'll be presenting.
Lovely.
So, come along and tell us what you know about the films. Tell us your story of Leeds.
That's 5 o'clock when?
On Sunday.
Brilliant. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Love that. Really
so good. So good.
Pupils from Doncaster School for the Deaf have been entertaining crowds of shoppers today, performing Christmas songs using British Sign Language. Pupils, along with teachers, turned out at Lakeside Shopping Centre to add some festive cheer. The performance has taken weeks of organising and many rehearsals. The team behind it say it aims to ensure deaf children are given the same opportunities as those in mainstream schools.
We've got some natural born performers in our school who love acting, love singing and signing and expressing themselves just like any other child would. So it's really important that they can come out here and just show the general public what they've been doing, their language, their art. And just for a chance for everyone to really appreciate it actually, and maybe even teach people something they've not learned before.
You can sing through sign, so yeah, I think it is important, and obviously, for the families to see it, and it just brings joy, doesn't it?
What a wonderful day for the children and the parents as well.
Yes.
Proud
Very
parents.
nice.
Now, over the last couple of decades, English football has become very much a global game, hasn't it? With Premier League matches broadcast around the globe. And it's attracted a whole new army of fans.
But whereas most are attracted to the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City and Arsenal, a 22-year-old man from South Korea has thwarted convention.
Yes, Yang Si-jun has adopted Chesterfield as his team after discovering them when playing a computer game. And this week, he made the journey to North Derbyshire along with his brother. Chris Dawkes has been to meet them both.
For Yang Si-jun, Christmas has come early. This week, Yang and his brother travelled over 5,000 miles to visit his favourite football team.
제가 체스터필드를 처음 접한 것은
I first got to know about Chesterfield because of the game Football Manager. In the game, Chesterfield asked me to be their manager and I accepted it. With Chesterfield, I won the Premier League and the Champions League. Since then, I thought Chesterfield has lots of potential to go up the leagues. So I have started supporting them.
체스터필드를 응원하게 됐습니다.
So from the virtual Spyrites dugout to the real one. But the reality of being a football fan hit home on Tuesday night when Yang travelled to Milton Keynes to watch the Spyrites play. They lost 3-0.
제가 처음으로 직접 관람한
It was my very first Chesterfield match to attend in person. It was a shame that we lost. However, it was a great memory that lots of local fans welcomed me and said, "Well done for coming."
행복했던 순간이었던 것 같습니다.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. How are we?
Yeah,
okay.
Travelled all the way from Korea.
Long journey.
Yeah, amazing.
Hi guys.
Oh,
how
are you?
Right, lads.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
You okay?
What was it like meeting some of the players?
예, 정말 환상적인 경험이었습니다.
It was really fantastic. I really appreciated how kindly they welcomed me. It was a very memorable moment to finally meet them in person. Normally I only watch on TV, so I'm so happy that Chesterfield players finally got to know that they have a fan living 5,000 miles away.
항상 응원하고 있다는 사실을 알게 돼서 정말 기쁩니다.
I say I'm amazed, incredible, but it's great to support. Shows the Spyrites getting all the way around the world, and yeah, amazing.
저기 아마 이제
Well, Yang and his brother will get to experience a full SMH Group stadium for the first time tomorrow when Chesterfield take on Tranmere. He'll be introduced to the crowd at half-time, and let's hope his second live English football experience is better than his first. Chris Dawkes, ITV News, Chesterfield.
Oh yeah, I hope they win tomorrow for them.
I know. I wonder what Yang makes of the weather we've been having, though. I bet he's glad he travelled all this way.
Yeah, precisely. Let's catch up with Kerry again.
Today's forecast: seafood and sugar cube towns. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Yes, hello again. It's a wild weekend ahead for many of us. Some fairly disruptive weather conditions heading our way. A beautiful start this morning. The calm before the storm, plenty of blue sky to begin, but already clouding over this afternoon, and it's all change as we head through into the tonight and especially into tomorrow. Very windy, widely windy with gusts 40 to 50 miles an hour. More than that over the hills and the coast, and isolated coastal gusts of in excess of 60 miles an hour possible by Saturday afternoon. On top of that, some heavy showery rain. So in a bit more detail then, this first system coming through associated with Storm Dara will become showery as we head into the night, but still with some heavy pulses and the winds whipping up, gathering strength, already becoming quite gusty in excess of 30-35 miles an hour, and it will feel chilly out there with those conditions. Don't be caught out by a calm period during the course of tomorrow. It won't last very long, and as that system, the whole area of low pressure pushes its way eastwards, it will introduce northerly and then eventually north to northeasterly winds, and they will strengthen, becoming strong to gale force, and they will provide a significant wind chill and produce or bring from north to south some heavy, showery and pulses of rain that could be quite disruptive too, particularly for the North York Moors. As we head through into tomorrow evening, again, it looks pretty unsettled, maybe even something a tiny bit wintry over the Yorkshire Dales. It will linger, that system, as we head into Sunday. So southern and eastern parts still cloudy and showery and cold, but the high pressure is waiting in the northwest, and it will bring us a calmer, more settled story into next week.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
There you go. Check your plans for tomorrow and steady as you go, for sure.
I reckon I'm staying in. I'm not going out in that.
I know. When Kerry said she was having a wild weekend, I didn't she talk about herself or the weather. I wasn't sure.
She always has a wild weekend.
Well, she does. She's a wild girl. That's it. Have a great weekend from all of us here. Stay safe. Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye.